Alright, good evening everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome you on behalf of the Office of Alumni Relations. My name is Jennifer Parado, and we welcome you to tonight's program, Writing Powerful Emails and Cover Letters. In this workshop, you'll learn the key elements of successful business writing for the job search. In particular, you'll learn what every cover letter should include, how to strike the right tone in your correspondence, and specific language that you should consider using. Plus, you'll get an opportunity to get immediate feedback on your emails and cover letters from the instructor, Rob Hellman. So we did ask folks who were interested to submit their email, their sample email cover letters to Rob ahead of time, and we thank those of you who did submit materials. So tonight we'll review those items, and those of you who entered submissions will get immediate feedback on your emails and cover letters from Rob. And just for those of you who submitted anything, we did kind of cut off submissions yesterday afternoon as we had to go ahead and start making photocopies of everything. So we accepted up until yesterday afternoon. So we're pleased to bring you opportunities like tonight's program, as well as networking programs, social gatherings, cultural opportunities, community service activities, and reunions. I just want to mention a couple upcoming events and activities. We have the SGA Alumni Gathering this Friday, and that's going to be held at the Shannon Rose in Clifton. So if you are a member of the SGA, a Greek organization, or any organization that's chartered under the SGA, feel free to come out and join us. It's from 6 to 9. And then on February 6th, we'll be hosting a workshop. LinkedIn 101, and Adam Mayer in the back will be hosting that one. And on February 13th, we'll be hosting a webinar, LinkedIn Intensive Jumpstart Your Career, and Rob will be leading that one. Always remember that your connection to Montclair State lasts a lifetime. Whether you're graduating this year or graduated 50 years ago, you remain a part of the community. Alumni support is critical to the future success of the university, and we rely on your engagement in a number of meaningful ways, from attending events and activities, to connecting with students and faculty, and to supporting the annual fund. One of the many ways for you to stay connected is through our online community, which I know many of you are signed on to, Montclair Connect. And there's various tools that you can use through Montclair Connect, including the alumni directory. You can post and search for resumes. You can enter class notes, register for events and activities, and much more. So feel free to sign on if you haven't done so already. Just a couple of housekeeping items. Your feedback is very important to us. There is a short evaluation at your desk. If you could just fill that out for us before we leave this evening, we'd really appreciate it. And I also want to mention that this session is being recorded, and it will be available online. So for those of you who want a refresher, or for people who missed it, it will be posted online as well. So I'm delighted to introduce tonight's instructor, Rob Hellman. Rob is a certified 5 O'Clock Club career coach. He's a vice president at the club and a professor at NYU. He's also the author of the book, Your Social Media Job Search, which we'll be raffling off tonight. The 5 O'Clock Club is a national outplacement and career counseling network with certified career counselors across the U.S. Rob has helped hundreds of clients in diverse industries and professions to define and reach their job search and on-the-job goals. In addition to his private coaching practice, his career-related insights and commentary have appeared in media outlets such as the New York Times, Forbes, the Washington Post, Money Magazine, CNBC.com, ABC News, and Fox News. He combines his more than 20 years in corporate marketing at companies such as American Express and JP Morgan Chase with his 5 O'Clock Club career training to help people market themselves in their careers. But before I bring up Rob, I would just like to introduce Adam Mayer. He is the Director of Career Counseling in the Center for Career Services and Cooperative Education. And he's just going to talk to you a little bit about the benefits and services available to you through the Center for Career Services.
Thanks, Jenna. Thank you. You all get extra points for showing up tonight with the weather being so bad. Very good stuff. So you're serious. But just briefly, because you have a fantastic program coming up here. But you can always come back to your alma mater for career counseling. It's a one-on-one service. It's free. You can get feedback on resumes, cover letters. You can look at job search techniques, the whole 9 yards. We can do mock interviewing. It's a nice way to kind of do that. It's a non-judgmental atmosphere. You can sit down. It's a confidential service. We have tons of workshops online. Our website, you'll see there's actually a sheet here, this pink sheet. This lists all our services, and it will stop me from talking. Anything else is already here. We've got our little QR codes. If you have a smartphone or otherwise QR code reader, you can bring up our site right there. So that's all, and I wish you guys all the best of luck, and take advantage of the career services here at Montclair State. Thanks. Rob?
Hi, everybody. Just want to say, the services you have that Adam was talking to you about are fantastic here. I mean, I work with a lot of different schools. I would highly recommend you take advantage of them. The fact that they're free, too, to alumni is really great. So, and you've got some really good people there, so, not Lisa, which is Adam, so I would highly recommend you take advantage of them. But anyway, so tonight we're going to talk about business writing for the job search. And before we get into it, I just want to mention that I'm happy, you have a printout, a hard copy of some of the slides we're going to be talking about and some of the letters. If you want all these slides mailed to you electronically, I'm happy to do that. If you want, I'll leave this out here. You can fill out your name and your email address, hopefully neatly, so I can read it. And then I will email you the slides, and you'll be on my list for roughly once a month job search and career tips. It's not even once a month. It's usually when I get around to it, which isn't that often, but I've heard that people find them valuable. So anyway, so just wanted to mention that. And okay, let me just give you a quick introduction. Why are we talking about business writing for the job search? I mean, obviously, you want to make a good impression, but it's beyond the obvious reason. Because, I work every day with clients. I have a private practice, working with clients across the country and all, very senior people who, it's amazing that they have these blind spots around communication, like they don't know. Sometimes it's with writing, sometimes it's with in-person communications. I was just had a client recently who, actually sounded great on the phone. He sounded great on the phone, but he didn't understand why he wasn't closing deals when he was being interviewed. So when I met him in person, it was obvious he could not maintain eye contact. And in this culture, that's important to show that you're engaged and interested in it. He had no idea. This is a very senior person. He had just been in the same job for 20 years and nobody told him, right? So, and now sometimes it's writing. People come across great in person, but they can't spell. Something stupid like can't spell, like who cares, right? But it can ruin you. It can ruin you because people might think it's careless. Some people don't care, by the way. There'll be a number of people who don't care that you made a spelling mistake, but often that's going to be a problem, okay? I mean, dumb things like that, right? But even more important than spelling, because that's stuff you can have somebody look it over who's a good speller, or you can do the spell check. I always do the spell check, right? But the hardest part of written communications is the content, is organizing the content, right? And that is something that's what we're going to be focusing our attention on, is how do you organize the content, what you should be saying in your written communications for the job search. And I got to say just that if you think you're not particularly a good writer, you should be having someone look over your stuff, okay? Because you can do everything right. If you've heard me talk before, I talk a lot about being proactive in the job search, about always keeping control, about making those follow-up phone calls, contacting people directly who you don't know, total strangers, right? We talked about that in my webinar last week. I don't know if any of you attended. But if you didn't, you should watch the recording. It's all about how direct contact, contacting total strangers, is the most effective way of getting interviews. Also networking. How do you reach out to people in your network? Writing is a big part of that. Sending emails that are better than not embarrassing, hopefully, right? That are good. That'll get their attention and get them to want to talk with you. Cover letters for ads, right? How do you get yourself to stand out from the thousands, and I'm not kidding when I say thousands, of other cover letters and resumes that are being submitted for one position? How do you get yourself to stand out? That's what we're going to be talking about today. And a lot of what we're going to talk about, again, is how do you use written communication to be proactive, to maintain control of your search so you can get what you want, which is really an underlying theme of everything I share in all these workshops and webinars is going for what you want. Don't wait for the ad to show up or the headhunter to call. You go and send that email to the person you want to speak to, then follow up with a phone call and make it happen. So a lot of what we're going to talk about is how do you write that email? How do you send an email to someone that you want to speak to who's like a total stranger? Or maybe someone you're getting introduced to through your network. Okay, so anyway, I just wanted to say that. And if if you're not sure if you're that good, you should get feedback. A few of you submitted some letters to me. I applaud you for doing that. We should be able to get to them today. We're going to kind of go over them in the class. But you should get feedback from somebody who's a good writer. And just make sure that you're, unknown to yourself, you're not hurting your chances, right, by the way you write. So, okay. So let's get into it. The first thing I just want to talk about, by the way, I appreciate Jenna's very nice introduction. A couple other quick bits of information about me. I'm a certified 5 O'Clock Club career coach. That means I'm trained in a very powerful, research-based, field-tested approach to the job search. A lot of what I'm sharing with you today will kind of come from that approach, plus my experience in my private practice, coaching clients every day. Probably half, if not more, of what I do is just rewrite and write letters and emails and resumes. So that's what I do. I get lots of practice doing that every single day. Plus, I have 20 years in the corporate world. So I've been where you are. I've had to interview for jobs. I had to write cover letters and emails and all that stuff. And I've interviewed people too and read their applications. So I've been from that side, on that side of it as well. So that informs what I'm sharing with you. And so I just wanted to let you know about that. Okay, so let's get into the detail. Now, when we talk about powerful cover letters and emails, I want to kind of just dispense with one thing right away. Should you use an email, or should you send a letter? Okay? The answer is it depends. Okay? It depends. Now, I think in most cases, you want to default to email. You want to default to email because, first of all, it works. It works. I see it work every day. I've seen it work in my own searches and things that I'm trying to get. I've seen it work for clients. And it's super easy compared to a letter. You don't have to find the stamp or, now I got to go buy stamps. I can't get this envelope to fit through the printer. This is a pain in the neck. Then you got to remember to mail the letter. It usually takes me 3 days to mail any letter because I just forget. So it's just like a whole thing, and then it's hard for them to respond. So everything about email is faster and easier. So since it works, you should try to default to email, but there are, a number of exceptions where you may want to send a letter, or you may want to do both. And that's kind of like what this chart shows you, and actually you have this in your handout, right? You have all these slides in your handout. If you want to look at it, if you don't want to look at it on the screen. But, email is fast. It's easy for them to respond, right? They just hit reply, the easiest thing in the world. Everybody reads email, quick delivery, right? They get it right away. When I was working at American Express, we were hardly reading our mail, our postal mail. It took us 2 weeks to get to it because everything was just by email. A lot of businesses that way, right? So it's more current, meaning, that's what business is done through email. Now, on the other hand, there's no spam issue, so the subject line is important, okay? So I actually want to talk with you about the subject line before we go any further a little bit, okay? But subject line is important. So you need to have a subject line that's going to get them to open your email. What kind of subject line should you use? Anything that will really get them to open it so they won't go into spam. That implies, first of all, that your email address is not doggy23@hotmail.com, right? You want an email address that doesn't look like spam, that looks professional. It should have your name in it. It should have your name in it. So mine is, rob@hellmanconsulting.com. I have my own domain name, but you could have robhellman@gmail.com, or, Gmail has a pretty good cachet these days. If you have AOL.com, that feels outdated to some people. This is not a big deal, right? I'm not saying you have to go change your whole email system, but if it were me and I wanted to do everything perfectly, I'd go get a Gmail account and have my name in the Gmail account. robhellman@gmail.com or something like that, if I were doing the job search. And then you can have your email you get in that inbox forwarded to whatever other Gmail account that you have, or other email account that you have, so you don't have to keep jumping around to different inboxes. Okay? So let's dispense with that. Get a good email address. It's professional. Now, the other thing is, the subject line, you want it to be something that's catchy. So I would, referred by is good, right? If you were referred by someone. Because if they know that person, if it's a good referral, they're gonna read your email. If you could reference something in the subject line that they care about. Obviously, if it's an open position, you might reference the position if it's for a particular position that is open. But it might even be something like your expansion into Latin America, or even like, I'll tell you something I did. I remember when I was doing this, a few years back, I wanted to make a transition from corporate to higher ed. The subject lines I used were things like, I remember one guy, I couldn't find another avenue or an angle to reach out to him other than the bio on the website of this Ivy League university. He was like the number 2 person at this Ivy League university. So I just wrote, open to discussing fundraising and development at Ivy University, your university. Figured everybody's open to discuss, at that level is open to discussing fundraising. Everybody is. So of course he opened it, right? Another person I wrote, your name surfaced in an article on the Chronicle of Higher Education. Because that was a trade publication I was looking at to find people that wrote stuff that who I could then write to and say, your name surfaced in an article. Right? So I could because people want, if you read something that someone wrote and then you can comment on it in an intelligent way, that's impressive. Right? So the subject line could reference something that you read that they wrote or where they were quoted in something. But the point is you want to, you might say, fellow Montclair State alum, right? You might say that. Or our 9 mutual LinkedIn connections. Something that will get them at least to read it. Okay? That's all you need. Once they read it, then, that's Act 2. Then you got to have the content there and for it to make a good impression. Okay, so, all right, so anyway, that's the subject line. Let's go back to email versus cover letter now, versus postal mail. So postal mail, what's the problem with postal mail? Well, it is time consuming, it's hard to respond, it does take longer than email to get there. It does work. It does work. If you write a letter, people, it does grab people's attention. Sometimes it could stand out more than an email, because email is like another email. People aren't getting many letters these days, so it can really stand out, especially if you put it in a priority mail envelope. So it stands out in the mail. Oh, priority mail, right? But again, I just think it's the cost. If you do the cost benefit, just do the letters sparingly. You'll have to maybe do a case by case. You might think the person you're writing to is a little bit more old school. Then maybe you send them a letter. Maybe you do both. Okay? But since email works, I would default to email. So I just want to mention that because a lot of letters I got from people who are participating in this workshop were letters. They were real letters. Maybe that's because they were cover letters and you were attaching them. That makes sense to me. But anyway, okay, let's keep going. So let's just talk about the structure of many cover letters, okay? A lot of cover letters work well, and not all, right? If you introduce yourself at the beginning. So they want to know right up front who they're talking, why are you contacting them, who are you, and what do you want? That's really the first thing. You can't wait too long to get to that. You've got to get to the point right up top. Because they're not going to keep reading if you don't get to that point on top. Because the underlying theme here, another underlying theme of business writing, is people don't have time. Everybody's looking at things quick. 15 seconds. They want to be able to scan your letter to see if they should read more deeply or if they should bother responding or paying attention to it. So it's got to be easily scannable. So a lot of what we're going to talk about is how do you make it easily scannable. So that means you've got to get to the point really quickly, and a lot of things flow, almost everything flows just from that point, right? Remember, this isn't like Charles Dickens, this is business writing. So a very, very different way of writing than like, English Literature 101 that you might have taken, okay? So you want to introduce yourself right away, say something specific about how you came to their attention, maybe how you were referred to them, or who referred you, or maybe something about the company, right? Then you want to go into paragraph 2, mention your background, and introduce why you're reaching out to them. Then put your pitch in there. We're going to show lots of examples of your written pitch. You probably heard of your elevator speech. We call it the 2-minute pitch where I come from. Now, if this is your 2-minute pitch or your elevator speech in a letter format, okay? Then paragraph 4 is like the call to action. Now, this is just a very loose outline. These are good. You're going to change this, but a lot of letters will fall into this format. Okay, if you go into the next page, okay? A lot of letters, especially cover letters if you're applying for something, right? If you're applying for something, follow the same format as you would use for your 2-minute pitch, which is, first they want to know who they're talking to, how to categorize you, what box you're in, okay? What makes you interesting or different from the competition, that's number 2. Number 3, a couple of accomplishments that kind of make you look interesting, that help to differentiate it, that back up what you're saying in terms of how you're different or interesting relative to the competition. Then you want to tie everything together, underline my success, then turn it back to them. And then the steps you would like to see are, like, I'd like to give you a call and maybe get 20 minutes on your calendar. That's next, okay? So those are the basic rules. Now, I want to approach these rules in another way, and then we're going to go into some specific examples. So let's see if I have this in here somewhere. You have like a cheat sheet or a reference sheet in there? I should have it too, hopefully. Let's just talk about this because I want you to refer to this. We're going to go through lots and lots of examples. You're actually going to do some writing. This is a workshop, so I'm going to have you write, so some part of a letter, okay? But let's look at this over, and then once we finish looking this over, when we go through the letters that we're going to look at, compare this reference sheet to the letters you're seeing. You tell me what you think. Okay? So remember I said the whole point is to make the letter very scannable, right? That's the first thing on this sheet, right? I don't think I have this in here. Let me put this up here. Hold on a minute. Here it is. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. Anyway, so you want to make it easily scannable, right? Which is different from the length. The length is secondary. What I want is readability. That they're going to be able to quickly skim through it and get the information you're trying to tell them really, really fast. Okay? What does that mean? I'm giving you some really practical tips that work. Number 1, short paragraphs. I will not. If somebody sends me something with a long paragraph, I don't want to read it. That's how I feel. I'm busy. I don't want to read it. Most hiring managers or people that you're trying to get to help you or that you want to meet with, they're not going to want to read it either. If you make them read and they actually do read it, they're probably not going to remember what you're saying as well because it's all mushed together. All these different points you're making are all mushed together in one big paragraph. It's hard to process. It's hard for the brain to process when you have a big paragraph. So really short paragraphs. You can even have a one-sentence paragraph. That's not grammatically correct, but in business writing it's okay because it doesn't matter. Whatever serves the purpose of making it scannable and getting that information off the page is what you want to happen. Okay? So I would say no more. If you're thinking about an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper with a font like Arial 11 or Times New Roman 12 or something like that, you should have no more than 7 lines in any paragraph. And even 7 lines is a lot. No more than 7 lines. If it's more than that, shorten the paragraph or break it up. Okay? You should also think about, in terms of making sure that the format, the structure of your letter makes sense, that the first lines of each paragraph flow. You should read the first line of each paragraph and just read them as one whole letter, in sequence, and see if it makes sense when you read it that way. Okay? So that way you get to see that you're not repeating yourself and that your thoughts are kind of organized across the letter in a way that's going to make sense to people. The other thing is you should look for opportunities to use bullets, underlining, bold-facing, headings. You should use opportunities to make things jump off the page and easy to understand. These things do that. That's the purpose of underlining. It's the purpose of bolding. Okay? Headings can be great, It depends on the type of letter you're writing. But headings can be great if you have different points or different things you're trying to get across. Use headings. Okay? So that's the format. So after I go through this, I'm going to take questions, and then we'll go through some specific letters. Okay? The content. Let's talk about the content. All right. Let me ask. Anybody have any questions on the format right now? Yes.
I looked the way you recommended people, and somebody said you attach the resume. Why do you need to list all these things?
Well, I'm not sure what you did exactly. I have to see. So the question is, you said you wrote this way where you had the resume and what? You listed a bunch of points from the resume?
Yeah, I bulleted all my work experiences.
So you're saying you didn't get a good response by doing what you thought was the right thing based on what we're talking about, which is like a lot of bulleted accomplishments? Is that what you
Yeah,
did?
yeah, yeah.
So this is too much of your individual situation. I'd have to look at it separately. But you got to be smart about it, right? What you want to do is draw their. The question really is, should you, if you're attaching your resume, should you be listing a whole bunch of things from the resume on there if you're already attaching your resume? Up to a point, yes. If you want, and you're going to see examples of this, right? If you go too far with it, then it doesn't look. It's just repetitious. But if you want to draw their attention to a couple of highlights from your experience, it's exactly the right thing to do. So you can go overboard with it, absolutely. And you can go the other way. You can do too little of that. You've got to find the right sweet spot, okay? But let's continue on, all right? I'm going to show you examples so you see what I mean. Any other questions on the format? Okay, so let's go to the content.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Could you explain a little more what you mean by headings?
headings are like, these are headings, right here. Content, channel, don't, question, headings.
So you're saying like in a cover letter at some point find a way to like,
I'm not saying to do it, I'm saying you might want to do it.
it might work.
It might work. It's anything that'll help you to make your message easily scannable and make it jump off the page so they don't have to spend too much time reading it is good. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Okay? All right. All right, so let's talk about the content. Okay, so the content, first of all, I get so many letters where people are just like, I would like to talk with you. You know, it might be somebody who's kind of, I work with some college students. College student just wrote to this really senior person, said, I'd like to talk with you about your experience and your, and possibly working for your firm down the road. And I'd like to set up a time to meet at your convenience. I'll call you or I'll be in touch with you. I mean, there's no sense of, I'd appreciate your time, I won't take too much of your time, I'm not going to be asking for a job. There's no sense of kind of like respect for the other person's time or situation and your position versus their position. So I just see that way too much, so I'm sure a lot of you know this, but in case you don't, I just want to cover off on it. Make sure you show the proper appreciation. Now, I just mentioned a college student. I get this from really senior people too. In fact, often from really senior people because they're senior. They're not used to having to show that kind of appreciation in their position. Maybe that's why they're looking for a job. For all I know, maybe that's the reason. But you've got to, it's all about relationships. Half of your success in your career is about maintaining good relationships with people. The other half is how good you do your job, how good skilled you are. But the 50% that's about relationships, that means you've got to have good relationship skills. And with writing, that means, showing the proper, using the proper social etiquette when you're asking someone for their help. Okay? So just keep that in mind, and you'll see that in some of the letters we talk about. Okay? You want to make sure that you want to look for opportunities to make sure what you're asking them for or maybe even what you're offering is really relevant to them. Try to make it relevant to them. The more it's relevant to them or useful to them, the more likely they're going to want to meet you. Right? That makes sense. So look for opportunities. Every opportunity, everywhere you can, you should always be thinking of that letter. Can I say something in this letter now that would be of interest to them, that would be useful to them, that can help them in some way? You should be thinking that way all the time. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's just, I need help, please help me. Right? That's the way it is. Then show please. Say please. All right. So make it personal if possible. So meaning maybe say something about them or about the company. So it shows that there's some interest in them or the company. That it's not just a form letter. So people are more likely to respond if you take the time to do that. Sometimes you can't do that or you don't have the time to do that. But again, I'm giving you the ideal, where if you can, try and make it more personal, okay? Now, you also want to make your message clear and consistent. So some letters I get, I'm not sure really what they're asking for. It's not clear. I mean, just be clear. What do you want? They should know what you want really early on in the letter, okay? At the beginning, you're going to see examples of that, okay? So really focus on one objective, and that's your objective in the letter. Okay? Include your pitch when you're introducing yourself or reintroducing yourself. to somebody, even if you think they know you already, but now you're talking to them in the context of a job search, you want to include your pitch. Okay, so your pitch, you're going to see lots of examples of it. That's where it's like your 2-minute pitch in letter format. You want to put that in letters whenever, even if you know somebody really, really well, you think they know you really, really well, you should still put your pitch in those letters because they may not remember how great you are, or what you've done for a company, or they may not even if they work with you every single day and still do, they may not know how you want to sell yourself, or they may want to pass your letter on to somebody else. So you always want to have your pitch in there, even if they're like your best friend, your best work friend. Okay. Okay. So then we talked about the channel, which is C, right? Email versus postal mail. Just a couple of don'ts. So don't come across as insincere. It's hard to. I kind of know it when I see it, but just be as genuine as possible in terms of who you are and what you're asking for. Okay. I would stay away from cliched language or kind of obvious boilerplate things like I'm a great multitasker and a problem solver. Everybody's a great problem solver. Everybody should be a multitasker. These are overused phrases, right? Try to stay away from that. Yeah. Don't be repetitive. Don't be repetitive. Just repeated myself. Be annoying. Don't be annoying, okay? It says be annoying, but make sure you put the word don't in front of that. Don't be annoying, okay? Right? So ways you can be annoying. And emailing people saying, what's the status of my application? I mean, that feels desperate, number one. And, have a little more confidence, right? And don't ask them for stuff. You're already kind of asking them for a job. Don't keep asking them what's the status and things like that, okay? We'll talk more about these things. I'm just introducing these things, all right? Be careful of spelling and grammar errors. I mean, that's, again, some people, it's not going to be a problem. They won't care. They'll overlook it. Other people are really going to care. Okay, so why, do it. Try to avoid it. Use the spell check. Have someone look it over. One thing I always do is, if I have something important that I'm writing, I always try to send it the next day, because when I look at it with a fresh pair of eyes in the morning, I say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was going to send that out. I see all these things I didn't see the day before when I was just too close, right? Or even put it away for a couple of hours and you can't wait a whole day, right? Or and ideally have somebody else look at it. Questions to ask yourself. Do they know who I am and why I'm contacting them by the first few lines? If they don't, you got to change your letter. Is the intent of my email or letter clear? Do they know why you're reaching out to them? Am I using the right tone? Think about it. Am I coming across too strong, too weak, too humble, too wishy-washy, too aggressive? What's the tone you want to use? Think about that, okay? Too formal, too informal? It depends on who you're writing to, okay? But you've got to keep it in mind, all right? Is there a way that I can offer help to them? You should ask yourself, all right, now I wrote this letter. It's all about me, me, me. Is there anything I can do for them? Can I offer to share with them my network? Can I offer to share with them some ideas about things that they might be interested in? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But think about it. Maybe if you can, try to put it in the letter. They're more likely to respond to you. Do I really need to attach my resume, or can I leave my resume off? You don't always have to attach your resume to everything. When you attach your resume, it means, please hire me, right? Sometimes that's the right approach. If you know there's an opening and you want to say, you're saying hire me, okay? Sometimes it's too much pressure. So ask yourself, do I really need to attach my resume? Is it appropriate? That said, that's the introduction. I want to start going through some examples. Then we're going to go through some of the examples you guys submitted, and then you're going to do some writing. Okay? Any questions so far? Yeah.
How many pages should be appropriate for cover letter?
I think a 5-page cover letter is probably too long. But 1 page doesn't have to be 1 page. It could be longer than a page. It depends on how readable it is and how scannable it is, and how if you divide it up into headings, it could be longer. It could be significantly longer. Yeah.
I'm going to apply the internship program, so that's my cover letter for the internship program.
Yeah.
So is it okay? I tried to make 1 page.
I don't know. I'd have to read it.
All right.
Okay? I'd have to read it. Yeah. Okay. So, again, length is secondary. Readability, speed of processing what you're sharing with them, that's the number one thing. That's the number one thing. Okay? So let's take a look at, now I'm going to give you the context for some of these letters. Let's take a look at some of these letters. I want battery here. 1 second, because I don't want this to go out. Plug isn't working. Oh, there it goes. Okay, we're good. All right, so all right, let's take a look at this one. Okay. Now let me give you the background, because the context is everything. You really can't evaluate this letter if you don't understand what the background is behind this letter, why they were sending it. So in this case, the person, now you have this in your handout, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The person who wrote this, make it easy to read. The person who wrote this, she had heard that there was an opening. She didn't see the application, she heard there was an opening. So she found the hiring manager, just wrote to the hiring manager, wrote a hard-hitting letter, okay? You could also think about this, you can also tweak this slightly, even if you're applying to a job posting, and use the same letter for a job posting, okay? But I'm going to show you other ways you might want to consider applying for a formal posting that are a little bit different than this, okay? So keep it in mind, this could be also a sort of, with a little bit of minor tweaks, this could be a letter for a job posting that you're applying to. But I think there's even an even better way to apply for a job posting that we're going to get to. But if you know that there's an opening, you just want to go for it, or even if you're not sure, but you just want to go for it, you found the hiring manager, you want to work in this department, you want to write a hard-hitting, assertive letter, this is the kind of letter you want to write. And I say that only because this and very similar letters to this have been very, very successful for clients. Why have they been successful? Let's compare it to the cheat sheet. Okay, I'm going to look at the cheat sheet here and say, let's see how it goes. Okay, first of all, are there short paragraphs? I would say yes, right? No more than 7 lines, okay? Bullets, right? Makes it easier to read. Oh, she used underlining and bolding in some of those bullets. Let's see what else she did. Other things that she did. Now, remember I showed you in a slide a couple of slides ago, the format where you want to say who, you want to first say, here's who I am, here's what box I'm in, here's how to categorize me, here's what makes me interesting or different from the competition, here are some of the things I have to back it up. All that stuff is right in this letter, okay? So she starts out saying, could United Technologies benefit from a hands-on tax director and counsel? That's what box she's in, how to categorize her, right? With international expertise and the ability to drive strategic initiatives. That's what makes her interesting or different from the competition, right? Then she elaborates on what makes her interesting or different from the competition. I have designed and implemented tax strategies for businesses in the U.S. and more than 14 countries, which could be helpful given your well-publicized expansion in Europe and Asia. Now she's saying she knows something about the company. That's on the cheat sheet, right? The content. Make it personal if possible, right? This could be helpful, and she's giving them value, right? That's also on this cheat sheet, right? Focus on what's relevant to them, what's valuable to them. Well, my particular experience could be helpful given your expansion, right? And she also knows there's an opening, so she's saying, can you use someone who has my skill set, right? And she knows there's an opening. Then she continues to elaborate how she differs from the competition. I know how to work with operations, finance, and legal people to deliver tailored solutions that get results. I've managed cross-functional teams in North America, Europe, Latin America, and Asia Pacific in complex projects including. And then she pulls out a few bullets, just a few, that really were essentially right from her resume. She might have changed the wording a little bit, but these are all very powerful, accomplishment-oriented bullets, results-oriented bullets. You always want to go for results-oriented bullets. Not just on your resume, in your letters, whenever you're talking about your experience, don't just say what you were responsible for, say how well you did. This shows up again and again in my webinars and my talks. You've probably heard it before from me, if you've heard my seminars or webinars here, okay? In your resume and your cover letters, always try to make them accomplishment-oriented. In her case, she's got the numbers, right? You can put numbers in, that's great, Executed a $4 billion U.S. recapitalization. Wow, that's impressive. If you do what she does, or what her boss does, that's impressive. $4 billion, right? Extracted cash from overseas without crippling operations or paying significant taxes. That's pretty good. implemented a global trading company to streamline production, increase sales, and reduce the global effective tax rate by 50%. Wow, that's impressive too, right? 100, you get the idea, right? Okay, then she says, my resume is attached, and she says, I'd like to meet with you. I think you'll find a brief meeting beneficial. Again, focusing it on them, you'll find benefit out of it, and I'll call your office to see if I can get on your calendar, right? Now, what's not in here, I'm going to look at this cheat sheet, okay? There's no thanking them. There's no showing of appreciation. That's pretty conspicuously absent here, right? So this doesn't mean you should do, this sheet doesn't mean you should do every single thing that's on here, okay? These are things that you should keep in mind. It says where appropriate, when appropriate, right? In this case, she's saying, look, and this is the attitude, I have something to offer you. I'm good at what I do. This is her attitude. I'm good at what I do. You have a need. I can help you. We should talk. That is the right attitude when that's the situation, okay? And that's what this letter reflects, okay? She's not saying I have all the answers. She's not saying, sometimes I get letters that are too arrogant. They're like, I can do this for you, or I can do that for you. You don't know that you can do. You don't know exactly what their situation is. So you got to be careful not to cross the line and become too arrogant in terms of saying, I know how to do your thing. It's better to say, I'd like to talk to you about it. I have some experience that I think you find useful or helpful, and I think we should discuss it, right? Because you don't know exactly what's going on day to day. In most cases, it's not a good idea, right? Because she stayed on the other side of that line. She didn't say, I know I have all the answers. I just have a lot of experience I think you'd be interested in. Right? So that's why this letter works. Yeah?
I think that this model doesn't show that sort of overconfident or like not too arrogant.
So you're feeling it's a little bit overconfident?
Yeah, it's like a little bit. When I read it, yeah.
Now just think about the context, right? She knows there's an opening. She's at a senior level. She knows there's an opening. They have a need for her. She knows that. Okay? So what she's saying is the confidence comes from her knowing that she can help them, and it'll be probably a beneficial conversation. Regardless, even if they decide not to hire her, they'll probably be interested in meeting her. That's where it comes from. Now, if she said, I can help you fix all your problems, or this, then I think you start to cross the line into over, kind of arrogance. But you gotta, really, this is all, if you're in a job search, now, you may not be in the same position as her. Maybe you don't have as much to offer as she does. Maybe I don't know your situation. But if you have a lot to offer, you know there's an opening, you should take the same attitude. You should have a confident attitude, okay? And if you don't feel confident, you should fake it, because it's going to help, right? And eventually, if you keep faking it, you might get confident, right? So, okay. Other questions in this letter? So I'm going to go to the next one. Yeah.
Yeah. To start with, if I'm the one who is reading this mail, if this is directed to me, I don't know who she is in this mail. You said in the first paragraph, tell me, do they know who I am, right, to start with?
They know instantly exactly why she's writing. It's in the first sentence. She's saying, do you want to hire me, someone who's a hands-on tax director and counsel with international expertise? They know it in the very, very first sentence. If you look at that cheat sheet, it says, she did that perfectly. They didn't have to go to paragraph 4 to figure that out. Does that answer your question?
Knowing who I am in the sense, what I can do, how I can offer, is that no?
Yeah, knowing what you want, why you're reaching out to them, what's the purpose of this email. That's what you want to get across. Does that answer your question?
My name, my position, what I'm doing so far, those kind of things.
I think you're going to see more how to say this when you see some more examples, okay? Maybe you're getting a little bit stuck on what's the language you should use, but you'll see there are different ways of getting across the same point. The point is that you need to get it across. You need to get it across right up front. However you want to say it, you got to get it across. Because they don't want to figure it, it takes them too long to figure it out. They're not going to read it. They're going to get bored. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Maybe look at some more examples and you'll start to see different ways of writing it. Okay? Okay. Other questions in this letter? Okay, great. So let's go to the next one, which is a different letter. Now, this one is when the opening wasn't known. Okay? The opening wasn't known. Now, this is actually a personal example. Some of you may have seen this in a prior seminar I gave. But let me just quickly talk about it, okay? Because I want to compare it to the cheat sheet. First of all, this letter, this is an example. This is the example I was giving to you before, where I wrote to someone I didn't even know at a university. I said, open to discussing, to the number 2 guy, open to discussing fundraising at your university. Okay? Right away, the subject line, he opened it, right? Now, I didn't know there was an opening. I wanted to build a relationship. My goal was to build a relationship that might eventually lead to an interview. I needed to get to know people at his university and other universities. That was my goal. That's what you should be doing in your job search. If you went to my webinar last week, you would know all about that, okay? And about how to start to get momentum by, meeting people and networking with people in your job target, okay? That's what this letter was about. So I wrote it in a very different way. We talked about the tone, right? You ask yourself in the cheat sheet, is the tone right? For the first letter, the tone was appropriately assertive and confident. For this letter, it's still assertive and confident, but it's a little bit more appreciative, a little bit more relationship. It reflects what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to build a relationship here. I'm not trying to get hired, right? It's a little bit different. Ultimately, I'm trying to get hired. But for the specific short-term goal is to build a relationship that can ultimately lead to a job, okay? So the tone's going to reflect that. It's a bit of a different tone, okay? In this case, and I didn't attach a resume. I didn't want, because when you attach a resume, they think job. You want a job. You want to be hired. I don't know if there's an opening. I want them to meet with me. I don't care if there's an opening. I want them to meet with me. Maybe I'll get a referral. Maybe there'll be something opening in a month, right? Which is actually what happened. The referrals. I got 2 or 3 referrals. Finally ended up in an interview through this meeting, okay? Now, so those are some of the things that made this work. But also I did things like, again, I said right away, though not yet looking for a job, I would greatly appreciate 20 minutes or so of your time to gain your insight on how my experience might be a fit in a university setting. That's in the second paragraph, okay? I'm getting pretty much right to the point. The first paragraph I say right away, I'm reaching out to you because I have experience that can support fundraising and development efforts. So right away, I'm saying I'm reaching out to you because I have experience you might be interested in. So I'm saying the purpose right there. I have experience you might be interested in talking to me about, okay? Then I say it a little bit more clearly in the second paragraph, more directly about exactly what I want. I'm giving myself a little bit more background. I say 20 minutes, right? I'm being respectful. Remember I talked about being respectful of other people where appropriate, their time? You don't know if he has a need. You don't know what his time calendar is like. I'm just saying 20 minutes. Everybody's got 20 minutes, I figure, right? I don't want to be overburdened. I use the word appreciate, right? I also I think, okay, can I find a way to make it valuable for him? Not so he's just giving me insights, but maybe I can offer him something, right? So I say, okay, given my many years of experience, perhaps I could also share with you some knowledge that you would find useful. Now, sometimes you can't say that. Maybe you're talking to someone who's too much more senior than you. It's just not, you just can't make the case that you can offer them anything, right? But you should try. You should think about it and see if you can. Okay? Then I go into my pitch. Remember I said every letter where you're introducing yourself, you have your pitch, right? My pitch is some background, including the bullet points, right? Now, this letter is a little bit longer than the other letter. And the reason it's longer is because I didn't include my resume. I wanted the stuff I put in this letter to substitute for the resume. So the letter had to be a little bit longer, okay? But I didn't include my resume, but the idea is exactly the same. How to categorize me, database marketing analytics, 14 years. That what makes me interesting or different from the competition, that this experience can be valuable in helping to optimize fundraising contexts, right? I spell it out, how I can help you specifically with my experience. Optimize fundraising, target enrollment prospects, and so on, right? Then I have bulleted accomplishment pulled from my resume. My resume is not attached, but these accomplishments come right from my resume. Again, the accomplishments, right? I use bolding here, and I use bullets, right? Then at the end, I put something personal in there. I noticed from your bio that you made the transition from corporate to university that I'm looking to make. Okay, now the other example, the person just talked about the company, getting your expansion in wherever it was, Latin America or something like that, right? In this case, I'm talking about him. I noticed you made this transition too. It would be great to talk with you. Okay? So, and do I even have to say that I got a great response from this and other letters just like it? Because I did. All right? That's why all these letters have great responses. That's why I'm showing them to you. Okay? He called me the next day. he had me come in, he had me meet with some other person. There was no opening, but he wanted to talk with me. He said, I wish we could have hired you. I wish you could have been here a month ago. I wish you would come a month early. We could have really used you. That's exactly what you want to hear. You want to hear stuff like that because now you know you're pitching yourself the right way and you're talking to the right people. Now you keep in touch with them as I did. Maybe you get referrals as I did, and eventually you get the interviews. Okay? Let's keep going. Just checking on the time here. Okay? We're till 8:30 we have, right? Let's go to the next one, okay? Let's go to, which is the next one? Hold on. Okay, now let me tell you, I'd like you to read this. Now, I'll read it to you, and you can read it along with me. Let's decide if we like this letter. I want to hear from you what you think of it, and if you think that there's something is missing. Okay? So let me just find it in here. You all reading it? Right, dear Fred, upon seeing your name in my LinkedIn group and seeing that we share two connections, Lyle and Henry, I thought I'd reach out to you. I myself have many years in the magazine and publishing area. I'm used to brand building. Given my many years of success in the advertising field from the sales side, I'd love to share some of my ideas with you, how the industry is changing, and what I see the direction of magazines and media in general. I would eventually like to transition into the luxury market. My favorite retailer is Bergdorf's. It's a classy operation. The marketing is smart and effective. I greatly value your insight regarding Bergdorf's advertising and media department. Would you be available for a brief conversation either in person or by phone? I really appreciate your time and consideration in this matter. Have a great day. Now, let me just, the context was, this was somebody, a client saw she was connected to somebody through a LinkedIn group, and at Bergdorf's where she wanted to work in sales, and so she decided to reach out to her through the group and sent her a LinkedIn group message, okay? What do you think of this letter? Does anybody want to share what they think of it, what they like, and what do you like about it? Does anybody want to share what you like about it first?
Maybe the first part, you're telling them how you're coming across, telling them, hey, we have some people in common. But other than that, it's too straightforward. Like, instead of saying, hey, we seem to share some of the same experiences or something like that, and how about we talk about the industry?
Okay.
It's right across, it's like, I would like to get in there. Can you give me ideas on how to get in?
So you're saying you like the fact that we share people in common, that
Yeah.
they brought that up, and then how she was very direct, right?
No.
About what you wanted. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, this is more of a negative comment. Being appreciative is great, but she seemed a little too appreciative at times, where it almost came off as a little desperate.
Okay, so you felt she was a little bit too appreciative and almost a little desperate.
All right.
Okay. Okay. Other comments? Yeah.
I think this was a good letter for what she wanted to do. She just wanted to meet together and share ideas. So, and it is somebody she never met, so I think she was,
So you basically like it.
I like it.
Okay.
She was very direct and very open about what she wanted to do.
Very direct and open. Okay. Yeah.
I thought that you're supposed to get those two contact names and ask for an introduction instead of talking directly to the person she really wants to talk to, Fred.
Okay. Let me address that, and then I want to just tell you what I think about this letter. Okay. I want to address this comment. Okay, and then I'll take your thing. Okay. You don't have to. I would actually, what you just said, the comment you just made was, if you see you have mutual connections on LinkedIn, you're supposed to use them to get an introduction. There's no supposed to. In fact, I would suggest that you try and go in directly, because a lot of times, if you know the person well who can introduce you, and you can ask them, do you have a good relationship with this person? You can ask them outside of LinkedIn. Hey, what do you think? I see you have a mutual. You're connected to this person. I'd love to meet them. Do you have a good connection? Are you closely connected to them? Do you like them? Do they like you? What do you think? You think you can introduce me? I would do that outside of LinkedIn. If you don't know that person well, that mutual connection well, or you're not sure that they have a good relationship, I wouldn't even bother with the introduction. I would just do exactly what she's doing. There's no rule that says you have to do it that way. Okay? There's no rule. In fact, I would say I would default to going directly when possible, because you save time. Because now you're waiting for someone to introduce you. You don't know if they're going to introduce you properly. You don't know how good that relationship is. Often you may want to just go in directly.
Well, I know I've done a lot of direct things like that, and they say, well, I don't know who you are, and and then they report me to LinkedIn, and then I get this nasty message from LinkedIn saying that I shouldn't talk to people I really don't know.
Okay, now, I don't know what you're writing. So you're saying you've done a lot of things like this?
Like,
I-
I try to introduce myself and then try to connect to somebody in LinkedIn.
Did you send me I'd have to see what you're writing, because let me tell you, the experience I and clients have had have been not that at all. Now, if you're writing it in a way where you're coming on too strongly, if you're coming, I don't know how you're communicating this. You should have somebody else look over your communication.
Well, I don't say a whole bunch of
Let me
things.
finish, okay? Because the point I want to make here, is if you communicate the right way, if you show the proper respect for people, nobody's going to be turned off by this. And also, this is a group. This is a LinkedIn group. You're probably connecting to total strangers, right? They share a group. You can message anybody in a LinkedIn group. There's no problem getting a LinkedIn message through a group. Are you messaging people through the group, or are you just trying to connect with them to strangers saying, and you're writing them a note saying, will you connect with me? That's different.
I say something small. I don't use 3 paragraphs.
No.
I would like to connect with you.
Well, that's the difference. That's a big difference. This isn't, I'd like to connect with you. This is, I'm messaging you through a group that we share. It's like an association. We're in the same association, and I'm messaging you, and I'm writing you a nice letter. What you're doing is contacting total strangers and saying, I'd like to connect with you, right? And they're like, I don't know you. I would do this probably the same thing. Okay? It's very, very different from this. I want you to understand that. And everybody should understand that. Do people see how that's different? Right, you're writing this is a nice letter. What you're doing is just saying, hey, I'd like to connect with you. What? Why? Who are you? I don't know this person. That's what they would say. I don't know this person.
It's
Okay?
usually from a group, though.
Yeah. Oh, you're messaging you. It's from a group, but you're still saying, I'd like to connect with you.
Yeah.
It's different. You're not writing them a letter within the group. It's very different. You're saying, I'd like to connect with you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You're still trying to connect with a stranger. Just because you share the group, you've got to introduce yourself and say something nice, that makes them interested in you. Okay? Other comments? You had a comment, yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit seesaw here. The second paragraph speaks more about him or her. And the third paragraph is okay, but the second one should be worded differently in order to make it down to earth, not so...
Make it what?
Down to earth.
Down to earth. Okay. All right, so you're thinking the second paragraph is a little bit too much about her.
Yeah, if
Okay.
I read the second paragraph, I would say, oh, what's this? Something. And third one is okay. It is too different from second one.
Okay, well, let me just give you my thoughts on this, okay? So I think I appreciate all your comments. Thank you. I really do. I appreciate the engagement and your ideas and your thoughts. Now, first of all, she got an immediate response, a positive response. I still think this letter could have been better in a couple of different ways, but she got a positive response, and I'll tell you why. Because she did a couple of things that were really, really good, that made up for the fact that there were some things that were missing or could have been done better. The thing she did good was she first talked about the company. She said it, Bergdorf's, what did she say?
It's my favorite.
Yeah, I would eventually like to my favorite retailer is Bergdorf. It's a classy operation. The marketing is smart and effective. That's kind of interesting, right? I mean, it's you read that and you think she's got a sense of what we're about. She has a sense of what we're about. It doesn't sound contrived or insincere. So right away, okay, she's saying she knows something about us, right? Right? She's also saying, I greatly value your insight, I appreciate your time and consideration. Have a great day. That's the relationship stuff, right? She's not assuming that this person's going to want to absolutely meet with her just to meet with her because she's so great, right? That's the relationship. There's a total stranger she's reaching out to through a group. So that's the relationship. That's another reason this works, right? A third reason this works is because she's also making it a little bit more personal by saying we have some mutual connections, right? Lyle and Henry, okay? She's being very straightforward. We have some mutual connections. So there's a lot of, the things, just to summarize, she's showing some appreciation. She's showing she knows something about the company. She's showing that they have something in common with their mutual connections, right? And she's being very, very clear about what she wants. And she's offering some value. She's offering value. I'd like to share some ideas. It's not just about, I like your insight. That's the fourth thing, that she's offering value. All those things are really, really important. Okay? Now, do I think that it was written beautifully? No. I think it could have been written kind of maybe more from a grammatical point of view, maybe a little bit better. Do I think that, you know what else she's missing? She's missing her pitch. She should have included something more about her background. She could have said, as highlighted some quick background. As you can see from my LinkedIn profile, I have 15 years of experience in luxury retail, where I've, bullet one, set sales records for 8 of the last 10 years. I'm making this up, right? A couple of things to make her sound a little bit more interesting. That would have helped. But she didn't, because she did those other things so well, it didn't matter, okay? So that's why I like this letter, and I think that's why it worked.
She didn't have any experience with the luxury thing.
Then she'd have some other bullets, like sales in general. Set sales records, right? Try to tailor it to...
Probably nothing in competition with them. Like you said earlier, you said sometimes if there's so much you're seeing, and she sounds like she's kind of looking up to them.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to give you an example of the power of some of these things that worked in here, which is the relationship stuff, showing you know something about them, showing you, that it won't just be about you, but you'll try to help them as well. That stuff is really important, and that's what got her the meeting, even though it wasn't a perfect letter. That's why I wanted to share this with you, okay?
I have another question. In the beginning, like when I took steno way back when, it was always Dear Mr. So how come it just says Fred if she doesn't know who she is?
Yeah, so in most cases, you're going to use the first name. That in most cases, now, let me tell you something, I'm not going to fall on the sword for that rule. If you want to use the last name, fine. If you want to say Dear Ms. this or Mr. that, fine. But you know something? This is, it shows a big difference in level when you do that. There's a lot of deference that's implied by saying Mr. or Ms. And that may work in certain organizations. Maybe they like that. Very conservative organizations, maybe that's appropriate. For most organizations, especially in this area, in the Northeast, right? It'll feel off. It'll feel odd. Okay? It'll feel like there's too much deference there. Like there's something wrong. Okay? People, there's a respect. It's like first names. I worked at American Express. I worked at Chase. It was always people when I was even nothing. When I was like at the beginning of my career, it was the most senior people. It was always their first names. Yeah.
Would it make a difference because this is linked as like a network thing? It's not like an official company, formal letter or resume that you're sending. She's trying to connect with them through like a networking thing. And they probably was listed as Fred or Henry or whoever, right?
I'm not sure you...
As opposed, like she's saying, wouldn't it be more appropriate to say Dear Mr. and the last name? I'm thinking maybe because this is linked, is not really like a formal.
That's part of it too. That is part of it. Yes.
If you're sending it to a formal company, you probably would.
I'll tell you. Because what I see as a career coach with clients every day, the only people who maybe there's some element of like the Mr. or Ms. or whatever thing. Is maybe students or people just graduating, because there's such a disparity in where they are. They're so junior versus these other people they're talking to. Then I can see that there's that element of respect. Otherwise, it just sounds like there's too much respect. Like maybe you don't have the right relationship skills to call me by my first name. I'm telling you how I see it from what's worked for my clients. Okay? If you want to use Mr. or Mrs., you disagree with me, go ahead. But I don't personally think it's the way to go. For most cases. In some cases, there'll be exceptions. I want to keep going because I'm sorry, we just have so much to cover, okay? I apologize. Thank you for your comments, though. All right, so let's keep going because what I want to do is I want you to write something. Let me see if this is the last letter. Oh, let's do this one. We got a couple more. Let's do these two, and then I want you to write something. Hold on. Okay. This is another example of how you write a cover letter. This is where you're trying to reach out. Now, I'm showing this to you because there's so many different things you might want to write about in a job search, right? This is an example of somebody who said, you know what? I want to reach out to my entire network. She thought very broadly about her network. So I'm telling you this because you should do the same thing. You want to think really broadly about your network. She said, I want to reach out to my entire network. I'm thinking, who's in my network? I got my family, my friends. Sure, the 5 people I talk with every week, but also people I haven't talked to in 10 years but didn't dislike me. And I didn't dislike them. They're in my network too. My dentist is in my network. Everybody's in my network. That's how she thought about it, right? And that's how you should think about it. So she said, you know what? I'm going to send a mass mailing to my entire network of people I know in some way. And you could do individuals too. You don't have to do it. You can do it one by one, but you just decide to do them all at once, right? And a lot of clients do this. I'm going to reintroduce myself for the job search to them, even though they know me already, and tell them I'd like contacts in a bunch of companies. Okay? Now, why did this letter work? Let me just get it out here. Sorry. Where are we here? Boy, this double-sided thing kills me. Where is it?
Page 8.
Thank you. All right, page 8. Thanks. Okay. So anyway, so why did it work? It worked because she emailed her entire network. She didn't ask for a job. She said, I'm not going to be asking your contacts for a job. She took the pressure off. Okay? She said, 10-minute conversation. Again, she's being respectful of where they are. She's thinking about the other person. You have to have empathy when you do this to do it well. Okay? She's thinking about would the other person respond to an email like this? What would make them respond? Well, if I make it easy for them to give me a contact, they might respond with some contacts. What would make it easy for them to give me a contact? Well, if I say I'm not going to be asking that contact for a job, that'll make it a little bit easier. What if I say I'm only going to talk with them for 10 minutes? That should make it a little bit easier, right? You have to have that empathy, or it won't work, or you won't get the results. You'll say, well, I don't know what's wrong, I don't get it, but this is what the problem is, that you're not putting yourself in their place, and so you're being too presumptuous about what they would do for you, okay? So she didn't ask for a job, she asked for a 10-minute job conversation. She also did things like she gave a specific job target. She made it very clear what she wanted right away. Remember we talked about you got to let them know right away what you want, right? I'm looking for a new position. This is somebody who's wanted to be a teacher, to move to a different school, the public school system, okay? So she said, I greatly appreciate, again, showed appreciation, 10-minute conversation. Then she gave her pitch. Remember, this pitch keeps appearing. Every letter, you see this pitch, it's the same idea. Totally different professions, right? One was this tax counsel, right? Another was me when a few years ago when I was in marketing. This person, she's a teacher, but it's the same idea. You see the same thing with the bulleted accomplishments. There's no resume attached because that means a job, right? So there's no resume, okay? So all that's the same. And she also listed the specific schools, right? The specific organizations, because she thought it would help them jog their memory about what she knows. So she got, she sent it to like 200 people. She got maybe 10 responses, and she got like 3 interviews out of it. Not bad. Not bad. Okay? I just wanted to show you this again. I don't want to spend too much time on every single letter, but I do want to give you an idea of how the pitch can be used in lots of different ways, and how some of the same elements keep coming up, like showing appreciation when appropriate, short paragraphs, getting right to the point, right? Being conscious of other people's time, all that stuff. It's all in that reference sheet. Yeah, go ahead.
How would you pitch if you didn't have any experience? What if you wanted to try a whole new career? Maybe you just only went to school. You didn't really do anything else. How would you pitch that?
Right, so that's a great question. Now, I don't have a specific example here, but I can just tell you. So the question is, how would you pitch yourself if you don't have any experience? Can I give you a personal example?
Yeah.
Let me just tell you, okay? Hold on, let me get your bag here. There you go. Okay, sure. Let me give you a personal example. So when I was telling you about I would want to go into higher education, I was in marketing, corporations. I had 0 experience in higher education. 0. Okay? I didn't know one person. Now I know everybody. I know Jenna, I know all these people, right? I knew nobody. Okay. So I was like, boy, I have to first figure out how I can help them. I have this years and years of marketing in like American Express and Chase. What can I do for a corporation? I didn't know. So my first thing I did was to try to get information. I had to learn how I can help somebody. So my first email was, I sent emails just like this with my pitch. But I said up front, I am not asking for a job. I'm just trying to learn how I can help an organization. I talked to an alum. I went to Binghamton undergrad. I talked to a Binghamton alum. It was one of my first, in the right position, right, with a high up position, who could advise me, give me some insight. I talked to a couple of other alums where it was totally not about a job. It was really about can you help me to figure this out? And I said, I really appreciate your time. I just want to talk to you for no more than 20 minutes. Here's, what I'm looking at. I'm trying to figure out how I can make this transition. Can you give me some insight? And that's how you would do it. It's very much the tone is different. The tone is different. It depends on what you're going for. So then it was like, look, I really appreciate your help. I really appreciate your help as one alum to another, right? If I can help you in any way down the road, please don't hesitate to ask. I said that too. Okay? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so let's take a look at the next one, which is, I just want to give you a couple of other ways, like if you're just sending emails, right? Now, it's not just about letters, cover letters, and introducing yourself. Sometimes you've already had meetings with people, right? And you just want to follow up. What should you do? Now, I'm going back to those Now, you're following up. You had a meeting, right? And you're following up with them. What do you do? Do you annoy them? Like, what's the status? Is there anything open now? No. You don't do that. You don't bug them, all right? What you do want to do with everybody you meet with, if you like them and you think they liked you, it was a good meeting, maybe there's no opening. Maybe they decided to hire someone else, but they still liked you. Maybe it's just an informational networking meeting, like I had with a university person where there was no opening, right? But it was just an informational meeting. I want to keep in touch, so in case they hear of something, they'll think of me, right? You just send them a short note to remind them you should be updating them regularly, right? Everybody is in your network. You want to think, even if it's somebody you had an interview with and they ended up offering the job somewhere else, someone else, try to keep them in your network if you felt like you had a good meeting with them, okay? Let's go through these two examples. So this is an example. Say you had an interview and you haven't heard back, right? So people's tendency is always, can you tell me what the status is, right? You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that because it sounds like you got nothing else going on, right? And you're bugging them now. You're bothering them. I'm busy. We'll get to it. That's what they're thinking. I'm overwhelmed. Now you're asking me for the status. Now they're not liking you as much anymore. Okay? So you've got to, hopefully you have enough going on that you don't care so much about the status of this one thing because you can just take any of the other jobs that are going to come to you. Right? Now if you don't, you're not in that enviable situation. You don't want to tell them that. You don't want to advertise that fact, right? So you don't want to keep bugging them. You don't want to say, what's the status and that kind of thing, right? So, one second. Here we go. Okay, so, where am I here? 10, 11, 9? Thank you. Here we go. Okay, so anyway, so this one, I thought I'd check in with you since it's been several weeks since our last email exchange. So you're forwarding the email exchange. So they remember you, right? You want to forward the last exchange, Well, I'm continuing to meet with other firms in the industry, meaning I'm not going to be around forever, right? I remain very interested in Acme Plumbing Supply, right? Or you might say Acme Plumbing Supply is my top choice, right? If there's any additional information I can provide that would help with decision making, please don't hesitate to ask. That's it, short and to the point. You don't have to introduce yourself and write a long letter again. You've already done that. You've had the interview, you wrote the influence letter, the follow-up letter after the interview. You've already done all that. Okay? So just a short note to keep in touch. Here's another example. Say you met with someone and it's just an informational meeting. In your case, you were saying, you're getting information, you're trying to make a career change, right? You met with them, they were really nice. You send them a thank you note, now you're keeping in touch with them maybe once a month. Once a month, you send them an update. Hello and update. Hello and update. Hi, Ben, hope things are well with you and whatever you want to say personally. Thanks again for meeting with me last month. Thought I would update you on how things are going with my search as it's been a while. I've met with Acme Company as well as some others in the IT industry. The conversations have been interesting and may result in something down the road. In the meantime, I continue to reach out to companies and people in my marketing plan. I look forward to talking with you again soon. Now, if Ben might say, hey, right, you know something? I forgot all about this person. There's something opening up in my company, or I just heard about something. They should really do this. That's what you need to do. You need to keep in touch with people. One of the things that are, and these are the kind of letters you want to write. So you don't want to drop the ball. You don't want to drop the ball. You have all these great meetings, and then they all fall by the wayside because you don't keep in touch, and you're back to back to the beginning. Okay. So you really want to keep in touch with people. All right.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You said
say with a follow-up email, you don't want to be annoying or you don't want to bug someone, but then you also have stated that you want to stand out and that you need to do things untraditionally, as you said in your last webinar, in terms of like, if you're proactive and you want to follow up. If you really, really want a job and you haven't gotten an interview, like what kind of tactics would you use? You know,
You haven't gotten an interview?
haven't gotten an interview, but the market is flooded, so you know that there's hundreds of resumes being placed in a particular opening. What would you suggest? I mean, you can look for it online, you can drop it off in person. Do you follow up with a phone call like early in the morning to see if you can connect with someone and talk to someone verbally, or would that be bugging, or would that show interest?
Okay, so I would try to find the hiring manager. I would try to find the hiring, and you never got a response, right? Did you call them? So the question is, what do you do if you really want a job, and you wrote to them, you applied, right? And you never heard anything. What do you do? Well, at some point you're going to give up. Okay, at some point you have to say, okay, I'll move on. And you know what? They may respond to you a month later. I mean, this stuff happens. It's amazing. They're like, you know, we've had your letter. You know, things have been busy. Now we're ready to talk. That happens frequently. So you got to be careful and not, you know, do it the right way. But you haven't heard anything. So let me tell you what you did. So you reached out to the hiring manager directly.
First, I applied online.
Applied online.
What it was asked to do.
Right.
Then I followed up. And then I dropped off the resume at their office. And that's it.
Right. Okay, so what did you do for follow-up? Who did you follow up with, HR?
Well, I found out who the hiring manager was.
Mm-hmm.
And I know her first name is Janice. So on the follow-up email, I dropped off the resume and I said, as you know, or you can attest to, I'm very interested in this position. And then I just gave some more information.
Okay, just very quickly, I think the best way in that situation where you're trying to get in is to not let the hiring manager know that you applied. Just don't even tell them that you applied. Just send a letter like the tax issue, the Global Tax Council one, which is the very confident one. Make it look like your gift that fell out of the sky, because what they're thinking is, oh, she applied, that's an HR thing, I should send this resume to HR. You know, they may be thinking that it goes into the bureaucracy now, especially if HR is powerful in this company. I want it to look like, wow, this is so serendipitous, we do need somebody, and she contacted me, we definitely should bring her in. Now, I don't know what you wrote in the letter, I don't know what else you wrote in the letter, I'd have to look at it, but I think, you know, you did contact the hiring manager, you did, you know, apply. I would try to, you know, there's a technique called surround the hiring manager. Try to reach out to the people who work for the hiring manager, right? And maybe just say, I'd like some information. Don't even say I'm applying, right? You've got a great company. Maybe you see a mutual connection on LinkedIn. I'd love to talk with you for 20 minutes. Try to get in that way. Get other people to know you, and then they can recommend you to the hiring manager.
Okay, because it's actually a doctor's office.
Oh, okay.
And it's a unique doctor's office who's doing like nutritive regimens to cure disease. But I have a friend who's a doctor who's also one of my references. Could I ask him to call this doctor and ask him, you know, to...
A friend who knows this doctor, or no?
No, but doctors always call each other. Like, I am Dr. So-and-so, so calling on a mutual patient for Dr. So-and-so.
You know there's an opening, right? That may be, maybe. I can't say for sure, I have to talk to you more about it, okay? It's getting a little bit too... But yeah, but it's possible. But anyway, I think you're thinking the right way. You want to try to use other people to get in, right? That's for everybody here, okay? All right. Okay, so let's keep going. Okay, so just look quickly about cover letters. When you write a cover letter, you don't necessarily want to do the traditional cover letter. Like, you know, and we're going to have a bunch of examples of that. If you match closely, you should do something like this. Now you see this, you have this in your packet, right? This ad response. Your requirements followed by my qualifications. Again, this is all about business, about making things, the message jump off the page, right? So what you're doing here with the ad response, if you're applying, right, online, what you're doing is you're saying, you're making it really hard for HR to reject you, right? Because HR, like they're always trying to, that's what they do. They reject people all day. That's all they do. It's like a habit. They just want to reject, right? Now, so you're making it really hard for them to keep doing that, and to you. And the reason is because you're saying, you said you needed this, I have this. You said you needed that, I have this. You're lining it up, right? In this example, you could see she was a program director, right? They said they wanted a bachelor's degree, I have the bachelor's degree. 5 years, I have the 5 years of supervisory experience, right? and she, goes on to the next page. Basically, and she uses, bullets. She uses the headings, right? She tries to make it readable, and she uses bulleted accomplishments. And now, when you do this, some people take it too literally. They take every single accomplishment, not every single element of the job description and put it in here, like must be a hard worker. That's overkill, right? Everybody's a hard worker. They assume that, right? Or they would figure you lie about it if you're not. So no point in saying must be a hard worker. I'm a hard worker, right? So it's like you don't have to pull every single thing out of the job description. Just pull out the key elements. Now, if you don't match closely, if you're missing a key requirement, you don't want to do this because it's going to highlight that you're missing your key requirement. So if they say you must have 5 years of supervisory and she doesn't have any supervisory, she should never write a letter like this. She should never have written this letter. She should write a more conventional cover letter. Okay? Or if she was missing the bachelor's degree, she didn't have a bachelor's, she never should do this because it's just going to highlight. She's like, we'll say, well, why did you bring up the bachelor's? That was one of the requirements. So they won't pick her, okay? So just keep this in mind. Just another example, okay? All right, oops. All right, so now let's talk about, I'll tell you what, let's see what time it is. All right, I would like you to take 5 minutes, and I'd like you to start writing. Now pretend you're going for a job, okay? So this is what I'm going to ask you, because I want you to start doing this, and I'm going to ask you, to maybe a couple of you or a few of you to tell me what you wrote, so you get some instant feedback, okay? And so what I'd like you to do is, what I'm going to ask you about is, what's your job target? What are you writing for? So what are you pitching? I want you to write your pitch. Here, if you look at any one of these, let's go back to one of the pitches here. You can take look at the teacher one. It doesn't matter, right? Here's a teacher one, right? They're all. You can look at any one of the letters, okay? As a reminder of my background, everything from as a reminder of my background all the way down to the last bullet, okay? That's your pitch. I want you to start writing that. That's what you should be having in every letter where you're introducing or reintroducing yourself. It's really, really important. It's really important that you get this right, okay? So I'd like you to start writing it. So when I ask you, tell me who you're pitching to. I want to hear what your job target is. So the key element is to summarize your background in a couple of sentences, and then list a couple of bulleted accomplishments. Specific examples, maybe from your experience, from your resume, okay? And so I want you to take a shot at writing this, and we'll do 5 minutes, and then we'll call on you, and then I'm going to get to some of the letters that people submitted to me. All right, ready, go. All right, so does anybody want to share with me what they wrote? Yes, go ahead.
Sure. So with over 50 years of experience in equity and options trading and 5 years as an assistant.
What's your job target?
Sort of private equity investment banking.
Private equity, what do you want to be like? Would you be an analyst or more senior?
No, more like the guy analyzing the deals.
The guy analyzing the deals.
Not
Got it. Private equity, the guy analyzing the deals. Let me hear it. Go ahead.
All right. With over 15 years of experience in equity and options trading and 5 years as an assistant portfolio manager, I have put many skills together in a way that few people on the buy side of the industry have done. Returns of 10% on weekly options versus the market, reduce trading expenses by 20% by choosing appropriate route destinations.
Are those last two things, are those bullets?
Those were the bullets, yeah.
Perfect. I like it. It's a great start. Did everybody hear that? Pretty good, right? You were very to the point about the amount of experience you had, and you gave some really hard-hitting bullets, like accomplishments to back it up. So I think that was really good. You're on the right track. Yes, go ahead. What's your job target?
Accounts payable supervisor.
Supervisor and accounts payable. Okay, go ahead.
As a reminder of my background, I have over 15 years experience in accounts payable. I have set up accounts payable from scratch for several companies. And the bullets are high value payable departments, over 1,000 invoices per month, overseeing vendor relationships, extensive internal control experience, and knowledge of 4 different accounting systems: SAP, Mapix, Intelliprise, and QuickBooks.
I like it a lot. I don't know if you all heard that, but I especially like the first one and the last bullet. I mean, I think your introduction was great. The first bullet was, read me the first one.
High value payable departments, over 1,000 invoices per month.
Whenever you name numbers, put numbers in or anything like that, it creates like an image in people's minds. It makes it more real. So if you can do that, that's good. If you can name places or things that people know, that's another thing that makes it more real and tangible and memorable. Okay? So I think that's great. And the last one was the 4 systems, and you named the systems. Great. The 2 in the middle were okay, but they weren't as accomplishment oriented as the first and the last. So great, though. Thank you. You're on the right track.
Management experience, though.
Well,
Is that
okay.
okay?
Well, I don't know if it's okay, but don't say it. That's kind of a management experience.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm pitching for a programmer job.
Programmer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have worked in several individual as well as group projects as part of my curriculum. I have coded over 6,000 lines of code, bug-free Java code for my image processing project, and successfully understood, isolated, and fixed a bug in an open source project. Built the whole template, handled the user module, and handled the security of an e-commerce website. Researched and implemented a solution to the proposition prediction problem in natural language generation.
Okay. Let me stop you. I think you're on the right track. I want to make sure that whatever you're writing, because I don't understand some of the stuff you're saying, they need to understand it. So and I'm saying this because sometimes people write and they forget that the people that are reading it have no idea what they're talking about, or they don't care, or they did. So as long as they understand it, I think you're on the right track. It might have been a little bit too much. I'm not sure, but I totally think you're on the right track. Okay. Okay. So all right, maybe let's do one more. Does anybody else want to go? Because you're getting it. You're all doing a great job. This is what you need to do. Yeah. We'll do you and then. Okay, go ahead.
I'm aiming for writing and editing positions.
Okay.
I have 4 years solid experience with the community newspapers of the North Jersey Media Group as a reporter, photographer, and an assistant editor. I have managed our paper as a social media presence with great skill and enthusiasm. I have won 4 awards to date from the New Jersey Press Association for my writing. During my supervisor's extended absence earlier this year, I assumed many of the duties of editor, including copy editing and page layout. And my readers and superiors have routinely praised me for the accuracy and clarity of my writing.
I'm going to stop you just because I'm going to forget. I can only hold so much in my head what you're writing. I liked it. I think you have a lot there. You're good. You can really see you have a lot to sell yourself with. I would take out the thing great skill and enthusiasm because it sounds like you're bragging. I would rather let the facts speak for themselves than you say I'm great skill and enthusiasm. Okay? That's for everybody, right? It's better to just let the facts speak for themselves, okay? Second thing, I think the things you're saying, I think you should put them in bullet points. They're just easier to read. Don't make them part of a paragraph. I'm just saying this from experience. When they become part of a paragraph, they don't stand out as much. People don't remember them. They're not as memorable. Just pull them out as individuals. Won 4 awards. That's a separate bullet point, okay? Took over the acting editor, whatever you were, right? You were the acting editor while position was being filled. Wasn't that what you said? Something like that?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I actually did have all those written down as bullet points.
Good.
And I said, I just spoke them as I have or I did.
Okay, good job. Nice going. Last one, very quick though, okay? Very quick, so we have to move on. Okay.
Job target is independent contractor consulting with limited experience.
Okay, independent contractor consultant.
I partner with executives who can benefit from my expertise in executive leadership development strategy, 360-degree assessments, business continuity planning, and training programs designed to enhance bottom-line results. I led a team advising Google on their executive leadership development strategy. I've designed leadership development programs based on 360 assessment tools proven to enhance bottom-line results for mid-sized healthcare companies.
I'm sorry, what is the job target again? Because I'm not familiar.
I'm independent. I'm a consultant.
For what?
Business consultant.
For what?
Independent.
But what do you do for them? What is your job target? What do you want them to hire you for?
Business consulting around leadership development, business continuity planning.
Okay, here's the issue I have. I think it's a little too broad. It might be a little bit all over the place. I think you got to get more focused on your job target. There's almost another problem. It's not even your writing. It's your focus. You got to be clear about what you're going for because I think you're trying to appeal to too many audiences. And I think you're going to either they're going to not take the time to figure out where you belong, or they're going to put you in a place you don't want to be. That's what I found from experience. So I would try to get a little bit more focused. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. All right. I'm sorry. We're coming to the end here. Okay. So I just want to keep it going. Let's look at these letters. Some of you have submitted letters to me. I want to go through and I want to get your thoughts on what they are, what you think of them. And then I'll give you my opinion too. And you have your letter here. Maybe I'll read your opinion.
It was only an email I sent.
Oh, you don't have it with you.
Very not.
Okay. Okay. Let me get this open here. Hold on a minute. All right, let's just start with the first one. And we're going to go through these pretty quickly because we can. I don't think we can time on each one, but okay. So dear search committee, okay? So I'm going to just address something. This is not a big deal, but who do you write it to? A lot of times you don't know who to write these to. It's a cover letter, right? Now, sometimes, if you know there's a search committee, then it's dear search committee is exactly the right thing to say. Sometimes people say dear hiring manager. I don't think that's always such a good idea because you don't know if you're sending it to the hiring manager. Usually it's HR that's going to read it. So now it's just subtly, HR is reading it and you're already saying dear hiring manager. I think they got that wrong. I'm not the hiring manager. It's no big deal, but I would just say, I've yet to read any ideal way of addressing these letters. I would just say dear madame or sir if you're really uncertain. Okay? Just say dear madame or sir. Okay? But if you know it's a search committee, dear search committee is good. Okay? So, I know the person who wrote this is here, but you don't have to say who you are. It's okay. I just want to kind of go through it. What do people think of this letter? Why don't you just take a minute to just skim through it and tell me what you think of it? This is obviously an ad response. All right, I want to get somebody's thoughts on it because you should be able to, we're talking about it should be a minute. I remember I told you 15 seconds this stuff should jump off the page. That quickly. What do you think?
It's not jumping off.
That's exactly right. It's not jumping off the page. I actually think it's well written, but it's well written in the sense of a non-business writing kind of letter. You know, it's clearly well written, but it's not jumping off the page. Your message, you've got to use more of the bullets or something. You maybe the shorter paragraphs. Like I would say, the 7-line paragraph that you have in the middle is pushing it. But it's still within my guideline. But I think you've got too. It's not memorable enough. It's not bad. Whoever wrote this, I want to tell you, it's okay. It's not a bad letter, but it can be better. It can be better. You got to make it jump off the page. I would use the bullets or the headings or something, okay? Or maybe do your requirements followed by my qualifications. Do people agree with that or no? What do you think?
So
Yeah.
you prefer sort of like a bullet points on a cover letter? I mean, even though you're going to put bullet points in a resume.
Yeah, because if you look, this person's saying here, right? With more than 8 years in the civil division.
It's very repetitive. You're saying career and judiciary.
Right, reports to judges. It's a long list of responsibilities. It's not badly written. It really isn't. It's well written. But it's a long list of responsibilities. It's too much. It's too much for people to even keep in their heads. And number one, and number two, in the way the big paragraph, the paragraph form makes it even harder for them to keep in their heads. I would do less of all the laundry list of responsibilities and more about the accomplishments. That's how I would do it. Okay? All right. So let's go to the next one. John Jones. See that one? Okay, so let's just take a quick look through that, and this is another, obviously, dear hiring manager, right? So it's an application. Take a quick look at it, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, I'm going to give, what do people think?
The first one is very long run-on sentence.
I thought it was okay,
On
because
and
you,
on and on and on.
Well, you think it's a long run-on sentence, the first one, and you're...
well, following that critique of just reading the first sentence of each paragraph to do a quick view, it does meet that requirement of if you read the first sentence of each paragraph, it does have a flow to it.
Okay. Well, I just want to say in terms of the first sentence, I think it could be a little bit better in terms of its formatting. It's not bad, but I think, yeah, there's something a little bit slightly grammatically awkward about it, but I don't want to spend too much time on the grammar. Yes, it can be a little bit, you can word it a little bit more clearly, okay? I would just say, I'm very interested in the position, right? I'm the administrative analyst 1 position. Get right to the point, right? Diverse skill set and personal drive to succeed. It's too, remember I told you about this generic stuff, right? The stuff that's like, everybody has a drive to succeed and all that. That's an example of this, and you're starting off with that. So that's not great. You don't need it. Okay? Does that make sense? The other thing is, I think again, and you're going to see that's really a theme in all these, so I almost don't want to keep saying it, but I think you've got to focus more on the accomplishments. I think it's kind of, again, it's pretty well written, but I think it will be more powerful if you can stop talking about your responsibilities and talk a little bit more about some of the things I did. Of particular note on my skills in record management and document preparation. Instead of saying I excel at this, say, give an example. Document preparation. Examples include, transformed the record keeping at this industry from manual to digital, saving the company, $500,000 a year. I just made that up. I have no idea if you did that. But that's the kind of thing that would, whoa, right? Now it's like, whoa, you did that? Totally different. Way better than saying I excel at tracking. Make them feel it. Make them feel it through your examples. How do other people feel? Any other comments? Okay, let's go to the next one. This is the one that says November 18th on the top, right? No, we did that one already, sorry. Where are we at? This is my challenge here. Somebody can help me. Oh, wait, it's the one in search for supervisor. We did that. Let's do the next one. Oh, it's the same person probably wrote it. Okay. Yeah. So again, change that first sentence, right? Diverse skills and personal drive. Get rid of it. I read this and I said, bullet point. Hold associate degree in early childhood. That's a bullet point, right? Right there. That's one of your bullet points, okay? Master of Arts in Progress. That might be another bullet point. Hands-on experience. Hands-on experience with children. Maybe that's another. Again, a little bit more accomplishment-oriented in this one, okay? Yeah, I think that's about all I want to say about this one. Okay, let's just go to the next one. The Dear Sir at the top, after seeing your position on the website. Okay? So I just want to say the Dear Sir thing. What if it's not a sir? Right? So I would say Dear Madame or Sir. Okay? So let's just read through it. It's very short. I think you just, you're missing an opportunity with this letter. It's really short, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's not going to hurt you, right? All these letters are pretty good. I was expecting a much greater variety in terms of quality. They're all pretty good, but they're all like missing an opportunity, okay? The opportunity you're missing here is to promote yourself, is to market yourself, to talk about the company. I'm not seeing, to talk about them, right? The seeing or posting on your website. Why don't you say something about the company or the organization? Why don't you talk a little bit more about your accomplishments? You start to do it, right? Highlights from my background include fine arts degree from Montclair State, right? Created 3D renderings for products that didn't even exist. Maybe that's another bullet point. It sounds impressive to me. I don't know if it is in your field, but don't miss an opportunity to take it to the next level in terms of really focusing your attention on your accomplishments and how good you are in this field. So I feel this is a missed opportunity, this letter. And again, if you can talk about them, now I'm not sure when the other letters did that, but if you can talk about them or the company, that's going to, you know what they're doing, right? You know what's going on with them. That's going to impress them. It's going to separate you from the competition. Okay? All right, let's go to the next one. Now, this is a Dear Search Committee letter, all right? Let's read through this. You see this one? I present my candidacy for Assistant Director of Campus Activities, right, which I found through Higher Ed Jobs. Right to the point, right? Right to the point. It's with great enthusiasm that I present my candidacy. I like that. No, my drive for success or anything like that. Right to the point. Now this is actually very similar to one of my examples, which is I'm very glad you're taking letters I'm showing you, and you're applying them to your actual real-life letters. So this is great. The first paragraph is great. As highlighted in my resume, I have a solid history of event coordination and program development experience in a variety of college offices. I'm just reading through it. Here are comments. I actually think this is a very good letter, personally, and I'd like to hear if anybody else has any other comments too, but I just want to tell you what I think very quickly. I think if you can take those, I think you have a lot of accomplishments on here. I think the list is a little bit too long. I think they're good, but it's a little bit too much. It's too much. It's like, now it's becoming the resume, and you don't want that. You just want to draw their attention to a little excerpt. It's like a teaser to get them interested in your resume, so they'll look at your resume. Okay? So maybe have 4 or 5 at the most. Okay? I would pick the 4 or 5 that have the most impact, that are most kind of memorable, create a great image. I think maybe some of these bullets, maybe you can think a little bit more about them. Is there any way I can kind of quantify some of the things I say? Like, for example, you say successful oversight of service learning projects, right? How do you know it was successful? Can you quantify it? Was it based on reviews, on surveys? Was it based on performance reviews? What was it? If it was, put that in there. Based on performance reviews, 95%, top rating or something on my oversight, right? Try to take it to the next level in terms of the accomplishment, but I still like it. The last comment I would make is, if you can say something about this university, why you want to work there, that's great, right? If you could say, Montclair State, I went to Montclair State, I've always admired, the programs there. Yeah, it's not Montclair State, whatever it is, right? I'm calling it your university, right? That's a good thing, okay? As long as it's sincere, okay? I appreciate what you're doing. I've read a lot about how you're expanding these programs, and I'd love to be a part of that expansion. Oh, you know that we're expanding. Great. Well, let's bring you in. You know something about us, okay? All right, we're almost done here. Now I'm at, actually I want to skip this one because the person isn't here, this X Foundation letter, okay? The person told me they weren't going to be here today, so we'll skip that. I want to talk to the people who are here. Now this is the one, Dear Ms. Whoever, okay? There was a name, actually. My name is Tom Jones, and I'm responding to the Associate Research Scientist vacancy that was posted. See that letter? Yeah, okay.
Don't need to say that was posted.
I'm sorry, what was your question?
It's just, if you put the job number, you could have just put the science vacancy job posting, whatever, and not put that was posted.
Yes, that's true. I mean, try to get rid of unnecessary words. Like you would say that's a minor thing, but yes, I agree with you. But in a general sense, and a bigger thing is, don't take out words that aren't necessary. I don't mind the length so much as having stuff in it that doesn't need to be there. Yeah, take out that was posted, right? Obviously it was posted, right? So I think, again, I think it's good. I think it could be better. How can it be better? It's all the same ways. I would say, can you say something about the pharmaceutical company? Maybe do you know something about them? Something that you read something about them, right? Make it more personal. That's going to take it up a level, okay?
And strategic problem solver, everyone is a strategic problem solver.
I totally agree. Thank you for that. So the comment is everybody's a strategic problem solver. It's too generic. It's not worth saying, okay? Microsoft Office, you're a researcher, right? You're a researcher. Who cares about Microsoft Office if you're a researcher, okay? It's almost it's a given for that level that you're going to know that, okay? And if you don't, you can learn it in a day. It's no big deal, okay? So that kind of stuff isn't as good. I think proficiency in analytic techniques listing that, this could be really useful. That's what they're interested in. I don't know exactly what you're doing, but that sounds impressive. I don't know what efficient knowledge is. If you think about the grammar, you might have somebody look at your letter before you send it out. Efficient knowledge is not grammatically accurate. You can't have efficient knowledge. It just doesn't make sense. You can have expert knowledge, or you can have strong knowledge, or you could be expert in, or you could be, okay? So
efficient almost sounds like belittling. Like
Well, it doesn't fit. You can't have a fish. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Okay, last one in the back. Let's take a look at the last one. So this is interesting because it's a little bit different. This is a follow-up. This is a follow-up. Dear Ms. Whatever, I appreciate you taking the time last week to speak with me via telephone about the program assistant vacancy. As you move closer to the hiring decision, I would like to express my continued interest in joining your team. I know this is great, because now I'm not sure. Now here's what I think. If this is like a thank you note, I wasn't sure exactly the context for this. If this is like a follow-up, like an influence letter, or a thank you note, or a follow-up after an interview, it's not strong enough. Okay? I mean, there's again nothing wrong with it. It's all fine. Okay? It's not going to hurt you, but you're missing an opportunity. Okay? You want to write an influence letter. You want to influence the applicant. You want to say, I heard you said you needed this. I can do this. I heard you said you needed that. I can do that. Use subheadings. Take it up a level. Don't make it this generic thing. Okay? And I tie it into them. Remember, I was in the cheat sheet. It says, make it relevant and valuable to them. Make it resonate to them. It's in that cheat sheet. Spell it out. Make it easy for them to see how what you can do is going to help it. Say, you said you needed this in our meeting. Maybe break it up into subheadings. I think you can take it up a level in terms of if this is a follow-up letter for an interview. I think you could be a little bit stronger. All right. And I just want to give an honorable mention. I read your letter. I didn't have a chance because you sent it today. But I really want to call out your note. I just didn't have a chance to put it in here. We couldn't copy it. But I want to call it out because I just do it from memory. But let me see if I can find it. Because what I really liked, I thought your letter was a very short letter. What was it? It was just for an interview, right?
Yeah, which I landed for Friday.
You actually worked. You landed this interview, right? So it was a cover letter. So what I liked about it, the first paragraph was kind of generic. I probably would have a lot of the same comments for that as I've given for these other letters. I really liked the second paragraph, and I feel that that's why you got the interview. The second paragraph was something along the lines of, if you feel that, I could help you, I'd love to, or I would love to come in and talk with you more about how I can add value. If you feel I can help you, it was something about showing how, I wish I had it in front of me, but what I liked about it was humble, but it was like, I would really, if you think I'm worth talking to, I'd love to come and talk with you and show you in person how I can help you. And I'd also like to hear more about what you're looking to do something that was very much about, it was very personable. It was very personal. I liked the tone of it. And I think that's what got you the interview. Let me see if I can find it. If I can find it, let me just look really quickly here. Hold on a second. I'm not going to be able to, sorry. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that it was really good. Anyway, I think we're just about done. Let's see what time it is. Yep. Good. If you want to get a copy of all these slides and everything, I'm not going to send you the letters that people wrote. I won't send you that. But I'll send you everything else. If you want to fill this out, I'll email it to you. Just give me a couple of days or a day or two. And, you can subscribe to my blog. I'll be doing a webinar here next month, right? February 13th on LinkedIn. You should all be using LinkedIn if you're in a job search. It's a fantastic tool. And thanks, everybody. I appreciate your engagement, and it was great presenting this to you. Thank you.